Group 7 report. Isaac Newton was born in Lincolnshire in England in 1643. When he grew up in a farm, he was a boy. He made a lot of inventions like windmill to grind corn, a water clock, and a sundial. However, Isaac didn't brilliant smart at all in his school. When he was 18, Isaac went to study at Cambridge University. He was very interested in physics, mathematics, and astronomy. But in 1665, the Great Plague was a terrible disease spread in England, kaya naman yung school niya ay nagsara. Isaac returned to the farm, but Isaac continued studying and experimenting at home. One day he was drinking tea in the garden. He saw an apple fall from the tree and he said,
Why do apples fall down instead of up?
from this he formed theory of gravity. Gravity is an invisible force which pull object towards the earth and keep the planet moving around the sun. Isaac was fascinated by the light. He discovered that white light is in fact made of all colors of the rainbow. Isaac also invented a special reflecting telescope using mirror. It was much more powerful than other telescopes. Isaac made a very important discovery with he called his three law of motion. The law explain how object moves.
Sending rocket into space. Thanks to his discoveries, Isaac became rich and famous. However, he had a bad temper and often argued with other scientists. He stole my discovery. Sir Isaac Newton died in 1727, aged 85. He was buried along with English kings and queens in Westminster Abbey in London. He was one of the greatest scientists and mathematicians who has ever lived. It was during this hiatus that he first conceived the method of invented calculus, began to theorize the law of planetary motion, and started his work with light and color. Through his discovery would change the world of science. He didn't care about the glory and fame that came with them. The discovery in 1671, Newton demonstrated his revolutionary reflecting telescope for the Royal Society, and soon after published his note on color, describing his research on optics after a visit from Royal Society. Member Edmund Halley, encouraging Newton to prove Robert Hooke's hypothesis on planetary motion. Newton wrote his Principia, which introduced his three laws of motion, and first described the idea of gravity, Newton's Principia. His work made him very popular and led Newton to being elected to Parliament after several years in London. Newton suffered a nervous breakdown through he came out of it he's interested in physical science and more as a public figure upon Robert Hooke's death in 1703. Newton became president of the Royal Society. Should he didn't get along with many of its members and made many enemies, Newton spent his final years a wealthy and famous man, whose discovery made innermost impact on society in the century that came after the 1880s. We find that the fascination with science, with order, and other reasons, knowledge really set the whole tone of the culture. The one single figure from whom then drew most deeply was in fact Isaac Newton.
Again, we are from 2G, Group 7.